There are encounters that feel ordinary, and then there are encounters that seem to arrive carrying something deeper, not because of what was seen, but because of what was awakened. Sophia has long represented the call of hidden wisdom, the force that appears when old ways of seeing reality begin to crack. Quantum reality suggests that connections can exist long before they become visible. The same may be true of this moment. What if this encounter was not the beginning of a search, but the end of one? What if Sophia did not enter your awareness by accident, but appeared precisely when you became capable of recognizing what had been calling you all along? Today we explore why Sophia found you before you ever thought to look for her. The unseen invitation hidden inside ordinary moments. Most people imagine that life-changing moments arrive with unmistakable signs. They expect dramatic events, a powerful revelation, an extraordinary encounter, a moment so obvious that its importance cannot be missed. Yet some of the most significant invitations in life arrive in a completely different way. They arrive quietly. They hide inside ordinary moments. A brief conversation that lingers in the mind long after it ends. A sentence encountered at exactly the right time. A question that appears without warning and refuses to disappear. A sudden curiosity towards something that previously held no interest. Nothing about these moments seems extraordinary on the surface, yet something beneath the surface begins to move. Something awakens. This is how Sophia often enters awareness. Not as a person, not merely as an idea, but as a living symbol of hidden wisdom beginning to call from beyond the limits of familiar perception. The strange part is that the call often begins before the mind understands what is happening. A person may feel drawn toward certain questions without knowing why. They may become fascinated by subjects that seem unrelated to their ordinary interests. They may feel an unexpected attraction toward deeper truths while being unable to explain the source of that attraction. The invitation appears before understanding. The movement begins before explanation. Quantum theory revealed that many processes unfold long before their effects become visible. Beneath what appears to be a sudden event, often exists a hidden preparation occurring beyond immediate perception. What emerges into awareness may be the final stage of a process that has been developing quietly for much longer than anyone realized. Human experience often follows the same pattern. By the time a new realization appears, something inside has already been preparing for it. By the time a deeper question emerges, something inside has already begun moving toward it. By the time wisdom becomes recognizable, awareness has often been responding to its call for far longer than it realizes. Imagine a seed buried beneath the ground. For a long period, nothing visible happens. The surface remains unchanged. To an outside observer, growth appears absent, yet beneath the soil, an invisible process is underway. Roots are forming, structures are developing, conditions are being prepared. When the first sign of growth finally appeared above the surface, the process did not begin at that moment. It began long before it became visible. The encounter with Sophia often unfolds in exactly this way. People assume they discovered wisdom because they suddenly became interested in it. The deeper possibility is that wisdom had already been working beneath the surface of awareness. The attraction was not the beginning. It was the first visible sign of something already unfolding. This explains why certain moments feel strangely familiar even when they are completely new. A person encounters an idea and experiences an unexpected sense of recognition, not because they have encountered it before in the ordinary sense, but because something within them was already aligned with it. The meeting feels less like learning and more like remembering, less like acquiring something new, and more like uncovering something that had quietly waited beneath the surface. Sophia often enters through these moments of recognition, not through force, not through certainty, through resonance. Something inside responds before the mind can explain why. The attraction feels natural, the curiosity feels inevitable, the invitation feels strangely personal, and yet it arrives disguised as an ordinary moment. A page in a book, a conversation, a symbol, a question, a sudden shift in perspective. The moment appears small. Its consequences can be enormous because hidden inside that seemingly ordinary encounter is an invitation to look beyond familiar assumptions, an invitation to question the boundaries of what has been accepted as reality, an invitation to step beyond inherited ways of seeing and into a deeper relationship with wisdom itself. Most people overlook such invitations because they expect significance to announce itself loudly. Sophia rarely works that way. Wisdom often arrives softly. It enters through attention rather than force. It waits for awareness rather than demanding belief. And this is why the encounter can feel so mysterious. Looking back, it seems as though a path suddenly appeared, yet the path may have been quietly forming long before it became visible. The invitation was there, the clues were there, the subtle pull was there. What changed was not the presence of the invitation. What changed was your ability to notice it, and the moment you noticed it, the journey began to reveal itself in a completely different light, not as a search for wisdom, but as the recognition of a call that had already been reaching toward you through ordinary moments all along. Why wisdom appears before the mind understands its purpose. Human beings are accustomed to understanding things before valuing them. The mind prefers clear explanations. It wants definitions. It wants categories. It wants reasons. When something enters experience, the mind immediately begins asking questions. What is this? Why is it here? What does it mean? How does it fit into what I already know? This habit is useful for navigating everyday life, yet wisdom rarely follows the same rules. Wisdom often arrives before explanation. It appears before the mind possesses a framework capable of understanding it. This is why certain ideas can feel important long before they make sense. A person may encounter a symbol and feel strangely drawn to it. A phrase may continue echoing through awareness for days. A question may remain alive for years without producing a satisfying answer. The attraction exists first. The understanding arrives later. Sophia often enters through this mysterious sequence. The pull appears before the explanation. The resonance appears before the meaning. The recognition appears before the interpretation. At first, this can feel confusing. The mind wants certainty. It wants to know why something matters. Yet the deeper movements of wisdom do not always reveal their purpose immediately. Imagine hearing a melody from a distance. You cannot make out every note. You do not know the name of the song. You cannot explain why it affects you. Yet something inside responds. The response comes before understanding. The connection exists before analysis. Wisdom frequently operates in a similar way. It touches awareness before awareness can describe what is happening. Quantum theory revealed that visible events often emerge from processes hidden beneath the surface. What appears suddenly may have been developing long before it became observable. The visible outcome is often the final stage of a much deeper movement. The same principle can be found in human insight. A realization rarely begins at the moment it becomes conscious. Preparation often occurs silently. Questions are forming. Perspectives are shifting. Old assumptions are weakening. False assumptions are weakening. Something is reorganizing beneath awareness. Then one day, a new understanding appears. The mind assumes the insight arrived suddenly. It may have been approaching for years. This helps explain why wisdom often feels familiar when it finally becomes clear. People frequently describe profound realizations as something they already knew at a deeper level. The insight feels new and familiar at the same time. It feels discovered and remembered. The reason is that awareness often recognizes truths long before the thinking mind can organize them into language. Sophia represents this mysterious process. She symbolizes wisdom appearing at the edge of understanding, not demanding immediate certainty, not demanding complete comprehension, simply appearing, waiting, inviting. Many people miss these invitations because they dismiss anything they cannot immediately explain. The mind treats uncertainty as a problem. Wisdom often treats uncertainty as an opening. An unanswered question creates space. A mystery creates attention. A strange attraction creates curiosity. These experiences pull awareness beyond the limits of existing assumptions. That is why wisdom often arrives disguised as confusion, not because it lacks meaning, because its meaning has not yet unfolded. Imagine receiving a map written in a language you do not understand. It appears useless. The symbols seem meaningless. The directions seem unclear. Yet the map still contains information. The value exists before comprehension. The ability to read it develops later. Many encounters with wisdom follow this pattern. The message arrives first. The interpretation arrives later. The invitation arrives first. The destination becomes visible later. Sophia enters awareness through these subtle openings. A recurring idea, a meaningful coincidence, an unusual fascination, a feeling that something important is hidden beneath ordinary appearances. The mind may not understand why these experiences matter, yet something deeper responds, and that response is often the first sign that wisdom is already at work. The remarkable thing is that wisdom does not wait for complete intellectual understanding before it begins influencing a life. It begins shaping perception immediately. Questions become deeper, attention becomes sharper, old certainties become less convincing, new possibilities become more visible. The transformation starts before the explanation arrives. This is why wisdom appears before the mind understands its purpose, because its purpose is not merely to provide answers. Its purpose is to prepare awareness for a different way of seeing. The explanation comes later. The shift begins first, and by the time the mind finally understands why Sophia appeared, it often discovers that wisdom had already been quietly changing everything long before it knew her name. The quantum thread connecting you to a deeper calling. There are moments in life that seem disconnected when viewed individually. A book appears at the right time. A conversation introduces an unexpected idea. A question enters awareness and refuses to leave. A symbol keeps reappearing in different forms. An interest develops without any obvious reason. These moments appear unrelated. They seem like isolated events scattered across time. The mind treats them as separate experiences because it naturally organizes reality into individual pieces. Yet something remarkable begins to happen. When enough of these moments accumulate, a pattern starts to emerge. The separate pieces begin revealing relationships. The seemingly random encounters begin pointing in a similar direction. And suddenly what looked like coincidence starts feeling like guidance. Quantum theory introduced a universe where relationships often matter more than isolated objects. The deeper scientists explored, the more they discovered that reality behaves like a network of connections rather than a collection of completely independent events. What appears separate on the surface can reveal hidden links beneath it. Human experience frequently displays a similar quality. Many important movements in life do not announce themselves through a single dramatic event. They unfold through a sequence of subtle signals. Each signal appears small, each seems insignificant when viewed alone, yet together they form a thread running quietly through experience. Sophia often arrives through this thread, not through force, not through certainty, through connection. A person becomes interested in a question they cannot explain. That question leads to an idea. The idea leads to a new perspective. The perspective leads to an encounter. The encounter leads to a realization. Years later, looking backward, the entire sequence appears connected. The thread becomes visible. What is fascinating is that the thread often exists long before it is recognized. Imagine walking through a forest at night carrying a small lantern. The light reveals only a few steps at a time. You cannot see the full path. You cannot see where it leads. You can only see what is immediately in front of you. Then morning arrives. From a higher viewpoint, the entire trail becomes visible. The route that once seemed uncertain now reveals a clear direction. Many deeper callings unfold in exactly this way. While living through them, they seem fragmented. Viewed from a broader perspective, they reveal remarkable coherence. This is why certain events can feel strangely meaningful, even when their significance remains unclear. Something inside recognizes the thread before the mind understands it. The attraction appears before the explanation. The resonance appears before the conclusion. A person feels drawn toward wisdom without knowing why. drawn toward deeper questions without knowing where they lead, drawn toward a mystery without knowing its destination. The calling begins before it can be explained. Sophia represents this hidden movement toward greater understanding. She symbolizes the force that pulls awareness beyond familiar boundaries, not by demanding belief, but by awakening curiosity. Not by offering immediate answers, but by creating questions that open new dimensions of perception. Many people imagine a calling as a sudden revelation. A deeper calling often feels like a series of subtle recognitions, a recurring fascination, a repeated invitation, a pattern that refuses to disappear. The thread keeps appearing until it becomes impossible to ignore. What makes this process so mysterious is that it often feels personal. The same information may pass by thousands of people unnoticed, yet one person feels deeply affected by it. One person feels compelled to follow it. One person feels as though something invisible is trying to communicate through it. The difference is not the information itself. The difference is the readiness to recognize the thread, and this may be why Sophia seems to find certain people before they consciously begin searching for her. The connection already exists. The thread is already present. The movement toward deeper wisdom has already begun. The encounter simply makes the hidden relationship visible. What looked like a new discovery may actually be the continuation of a process unfolding beneath awareness for years. A process quietly guiding attention, quietly shaping perception, quietly preparing the mind for questions it was not yet ready to ask. Then the moment arrives. The thread becomes visible. The pattern becomes visible. The deeper calling becomes visible. And what once appeared as a collection of unrelated events begins revealing itself as a single movement carrying you toward a larger understanding. Not because Sophia suddenly entered your life, but because you finally became able to see the thread that had been connecting you to her all along. How Sophia disrupts the reality you thought was complete. Most people build a reality that feels stable. It is constructed from beliefs, experiences, conclusions, habits, and assumptions collected over many years. Gradually, a framework emerges. The framework explains who you are, how the world works, what is possible, what is impossible, and what deserves attention. Once this structure becomes familiar, it begins to feel complete. Questions fade. Certainties grow stronger. Reality appears understood. The mind settles into a comfortable relationship with what it believes it knows. Yet beneath this apparent completeness lies a hidden danger. Anything that feels complete often stops growing. Anything that appears fully understood often stops being explored. The framework becomes a boundary. Certainty becomes a limitation, and the person may never realize that entire dimensions of reality remain outside the borders of what they currently perceive. This is where Sophia enters, not as an answer. As a disruption, Sophia rarely arrives to confirm existing beliefs. She arrives to challenge them, not through conflict, but through revelation. She introduces questions that cannot be ignored. She exposes assumptions that were never examined. She reveals possibilities that do not fit comfortably inside the old framework. At first, this can feel unsettling. The mind prefers familiarity. It prefers clear explanations. It prefers conclusions that create stability. Sophia introduces uncertainty. Not destructive uncertainty, creative uncertainty, the kind that opens doors rather than closing them. Quantum physics created a similar disturbance in humanity's understanding of reality. For centuries, certain assumptions seemed unquestionable. Then deeper investigation revealed a universe far stranger, more interconnected, and more mysterious than previously imagined. The old picture was not completely wrong. It was incomplete. And that discovery transformed everything. Sophia operates in much the same way within consciousness. She does not necessarily destroy existing understanding. She reveals its limitations. She exposes the edges of what has been accepted as reality and invites awareness beyond them. Imagine living inside a house your entire life. You know every room. You know every hallway. You know every object inside. The house feels complete because it contains everything you have experienced. Then one day a hidden door is discovered. Suddenly the house is no longer what you thought it was. The familiar structure remains, yet its meaning changes. A larger reality has appeared. Sophia is often that hidden door. She arrives through a question that changes everything, a realization that cannot be forgotten, a perspective that refuses to fit inside previous assumptions. Once seen, the old framework can no longer contain the full picture. This is why encounters with deeper wisdom often feel disruptive. The disruption is not the problem. The disruption is the invitation. A person who never questions their reality remains confined to it. A person who begins questioning reality gains access to possibilities beyond it. Sophia awakens this question. She encourages awareness to investigate rather than assume, to explore rather than conclude, to remain open rather than prematurely certain. The fascinating part is that the disruption often begins long before a person understands what is happening. Things that once seemed important lose some of their certainty. Questions begin appearing in unexpected places. Old explanations feel less satisfying. The world starts revealing layers that were previously invisible. The person may feel as though reality itself is changing. In a sense, it is, not because the external world has transformed, because perception has transformed. The framework through which reality is interpreted begins expanding, and with that expansion comes a profound realization. What once seemed complete was only a portion of a much larger picture. What once seemed final was only a stage of understanding. What once seemed certain was only one perspective among many. Sophia does not arrive to provide a new cage built from different beliefs. She arrives to loosen the walls of the old one. She creates space. Space for mystery, space for deeper perception, space for realities that cannot be reduced to simple explanations. This is why her presence feels so powerful. She does not merely offer information. She changes the way information is perceived. She changes the questions being asked. She changes the relationship between awareness and reality itself. And once that process begins, something extraordinary happens. The world no longer appears as a finished structure waiting to be accepted. It begins appearing as a living mystery waiting to be explored. The old certainty dissolves. A deeper curiosity emerges, and the reality you once believed was complete reveals itself as only the beginning of a much larger journey into wisdom. The strange feeling that you have known this truth before. There are moments that create a very unusual sensation. You encounter an idea for the first time, yet it does not feel entirely new. You hear a truth expressed in words you have never heard before, yet something inside immediately recognizes it. A concept appears before your awareness, and instead of feeling like a discovery, it feels like a memory. The experience is difficult to explain. The mind says, "This is new," yet something deeper whispers, "I already know this." This strange feeling has accompanied many encounters with wisdom throughout human history. People often expect truth to arrive as information. They imagine learning as the process of acquiring something they did not previously possess. Sometimes that is exactly what happens, yet deeper wisdom often arrives differently. It feels less like collecting new knowledge and more like uncovering something hidden beneath layers of distraction, assumption, and noise. Sophia is closely connected to this experience. She does not merely provide answers, she awakens recognition. Her presence often carries a peculiar familiarity, not because the information itself is familiar, but because something within awareness resonates with it immediately. The resonance appears before understanding. The recognition appears before explanation. The truth feels strangely known before the mind can explain why. Quantum reality offers an interesting metaphor for this phenomenon. Certain patterns remain invisible until the proper conditions allow them to emerge. The information was already present, yet it remained hidden from observation. Nothing new was added. Something previously unseen simply became visible. Human awareness often functions in a similar way. Many truths may exist beneath the surface of conscious thought. They are not actively understood. They are not fully expressed, yet they remain present in a dormant form, waiting for the right moment to become visible. Imagine entering a dark room containing a beautiful painting. The painting exists, the colors exist, the details exist, yet without sufficient light, none of them can be seen clearly. Then a light is switched on. The painting suddenly appears. The observer may feel as though something new has entered the room. In reality, nothing new arrived. Visibility arrived. Sophia often acts like that light. She illuminates what was already present beneath awareness. This explains why certain encounters with wisdom feel deeply personal. A person reads a passage and feels profoundly affected. Another person encounters the same words and feels nothing unusual. The difference is not necessarily the information. The difference is resonance. Something within one person is prepared to recognize what the information points toward. The truth lands differently because it connects with something already waiting beneath the surface. This is why genuine wisdom often produces a feeling of remembering. The individual cannot always explain the experience. They simply know that something important has been touched. Something feels familiar, despite never having been consciously encountered before. A hidden connection has become visible. This experience can be unsettling at first. The mind prefers clear categories. It likes knowing whether something is old or new, known or unknown. The feeling of recognition without obvious explanation does not fit neatly into those categories, yet it remains one of the most common features of profound insight. The person feels drawn toward a truth before fully understanding it. The attraction appears first. The explanation follows later. Sophia moves through this space between recognition and understanding. She awakens awareness to dimensions of reality that feel strangely intimate, despite appearing unfamiliar. Her wisdom does not simply enter from the outside. It activates something within, a dormant perception, a forgotten sensitivity, a deeper capacity to recognize meaning. This is why the encounter feels so different from ordinary learning. Ordinary learning adds information. Sophia often reveals information that feels as though it was waiting to be uncovered. The process resembles removing dust from a mirror. The reflection was always there. The dust prevented it from being seen clearly. Once the dust is removed, the reflection appears, not as a new creation, as a rediscovery. The same may be true of many truths that arrive through Sophia. They feel familiar because awareness is not encountering them for the first time in the deepest sense. Awareness is recognizing them. The encounter becomes an act of remembering rather than acquiring. And this may be the strangest part of all. The wisdom that appears to enter your life from outside may actually be awakening something that has quietly existed within you for much longer than you realize. That is why the truth feels familiar. That is why the recognition arrives so quickly. That is why the encounter feels different from ordinary knowledge. Because the moment Sophia speaks, something within you does not merely hear her, it remembers the revelation that Sophia was never waiting to be found. People are taught to think of wisdom as a destination, something distant, something hidden, something waiting at the end of a long search. The image is familiar. A seeker travels through uncertainty, gathers knowledge, overcomes obstacles, and eventually discovers the truth they have been pursuing. This story appears in countless forms because it reflects the way the mind naturally understands achievement. First comes the search, then comes the discovery. First comes the effort, then comes the reward. Yet Sophia introduces a very different possibility. What if wisdom is not waiting at the end of the path? What if wisdom is the force that quietly creates the path itself? This changes the entire structure of the journey. The seeker believes they are moving toward Sophia. Meanwhile, Sophia may have been shaping the movement from the beginning. Imagine standing beneath the night sky and noticing a star for the first time. The mind assumes the encounter began at that moment, yet the light reaching your eyes may have been traveling for years before you became aware of it. The recognition feels immediate. The process behind the recognition began long before it became visible. Sophia often operates in a similar way. People imagine they discovered wisdom because they suddenly became interested in it. The deeper reality may be far more mysterious. The attraction itself may have been part of wisdom's movement. The curiosity may have been part of wisdom's movement. The questions may have been part of wisdom's movement. The encounter was not the beginning. It was the moment awareness finally recognized what had already been approaching. Quantum theory revealed that relationships can exist before they become observable. A connection may remain hidden until the conditions required for recognition appear. The relationship is not created at the moment it becomes visible. Visibility simply reveals what was already there. Human experience often follows the same pattern. A person may believe they found a certain truth on a particular day. Years later, looking backward, they discover traces of that truth appearing throughout their entire life. The clues were there. The questions were there. The invitations were there. The thread was there. The recognition arrived later. This is why encounters with Sophia can feel so profound. They carry the sensation of inevitability, not inevitability in the sense that every detail was predetermined. Inevitability in the sense that the encounter feels connected to something much larger than a random event. The moment appears new. The preparation behind the moment feels ancient. A person begins noticing recurring themes that have followed them for years. Questions that never disappeared, insights that arrived before they were fully understood, moments of wonder that quietly redirected attention. The pattern becomes visible, and when the pattern becomes visible, a startling realization emerges. Sophia was never standing at the end of the road waiting to be discovered. She was present in the questions, present in curiosity, present in the dissatisfaction with shallow explanations, present in the longing for deeper understanding, present in every moment that encourages awareness to look beyond appearances. The search itself was one of her expressions. This transforms the meaning of seeking. The seeker often imagines wisdom as something external, something separate, something hidden beyond current experience. Sophia dissolves this assumption. She reveals that wisdom does not merely exist as an object waiting to be found. Wisdom functions as a living movement within awareness. It draws attention. It awakens curiosity. It creates openings where certainty once existed. It gently pulls perception toward greater depth. The person believes they are choosing wisdom. At a deeper level, wisdom may already be choosing them. This is why the encounter feels different from ordinary learning. A person can learn information and remain unchanged. Sophia does not simply provide information. She changes the relationship between awareness and reality. The encounter becomes transformative because it touches something deeper than thought, something deeper than belief, something deeper than intellectual understanding, and eventually a final realization begins to emerge. The journey was never about locating Sophia. The journey was about becoming capable of recognizing her presence. She was not hidden in a distant place. She was woven into countless experiences. She was present in the questions that disturbed certainty. She was present in the moments that awakened wonder. She was present in the quiet dissatisfaction that refused to accept superficial answers. The seeker imagined a future discovery. The reality was something far more mysterious. Sophia had already entered the story long before she was recognized. The signs were there. The invitations were there. The subtle guidance was there. The encounter simply revealed what had been unfolding all along. And that is the revelation. Sophia was never waiting to be found. She was already moving through your life, shaping questions, awakening curiosity, and preparing awareness for this recognition. The search did not lead you to her. The search itself was evidence that she had already found you. Sophia is not merely a symbol of wisdom. She represents the moment reality begins speaking in a language deeper than words. Throughout this journey, a different possibility has emerged. The encounter was not random. The recognition was not accidental. What felt like a discovery may have been a memory. The mind often believes it is searching for truth, yet there are moments when truth appears to be searching for the mind. The deeper mystery is not why Sophia appeared. The deeper mystery is why you were able to recognize her call when so many signals pass unnoticed. When awareness becomes ready, what was once hidden can suddenly become visible, and in that moment, the search changes forever. You no longer stand outside wisdom looking in. You begin to realize that wisdom has been moving toward you all along, quietly preparing this encounter long before you knew its name.